evening, everyone. Welcome to the American Sports Connection. I'm your host, the one and only Joey Railroads. I'm here with my buddy Adam. Adam, how are you, sir?
Doing great. How about you?
Good. Trying to adjust with this goddamn fall change of weather.
Yeah, I know you're having major issues, which I will not speak on in detail.
No, it's just my sinuses and stuff are killing me. Like allergy season hit me all over again.
I hear you, man. Hang in there. It's almost over.
Oh, yeah, it'll not be that bad. Before we get started with some news and stuff, I don't want to forget this. Visit our social media pages at facebook.com/American Sports Connection or on Twitter at AM Sports Con, C-O-N, Pod, P-O-D. And please, if you get the chance, check out our sponsors over at the Squared Circle magazine. You can get 20% off your order using the code ASCPOD, and you can find them on Twitter at TSC Wrestling Mag, M-A-G. Now that I got that mouthful out, what did you think of football this week, opening week?
Typical week one. I mean, a little bit sloppy, a little dysfunctional and unsynced, but showed a lot of the flashes and portents of things to come. A lot of little indicators of why we love football so much.
No, I agree, and I had just mentioned this to you off air. There was a ton of injuries this weekend, actually, to I don't want to say super well known, but a lot of name guys that when you hear the name, you're like, oh, I know that guy.
Yeah, I really wasn't aware of it. I had seen a couple key names pop up, but if you're going to go ahead and run down the injury list, let's have at it.
Right. The one that was just announced in the last couple hours was Houston Texans tight end C.J. Fedorowicz. They put him on IR for the season with a concussion. I didn't see the hit. Apparently you did. You said it was really nasty.
Well, you were talking about multiple concussions in a short time. Now, was that? Are you saying that he got concussed more than once in that game?
No, the article I read it says the move comes after Fedorowicz suffered 2 concussions in short succession.
Okay, so I don't really know if that. I saw one hit, and he kind of took it on a medium distance route towards the outside. And somebody sort of peeled out from the middle and kind of cracked him. I mean, it was a clean hit, but you could kind of see it was in the shoulder, and he was kind of on his way down, so it may have grazed his head a little bit. But the way he snapped, and then you could kind of see him kind of looking a little groggy as he was trying to get up. So I had assumed that was probably one of the hits that contributed. It didn't look dirty or anything, but it looked pretty bone crunching.
Yeah, you don't really see those that much anymore.
That's gonna hurt. Whoever Bill O'Brien decides to, when he's done spinning the wheel of fortune, whoever he decides to play quarterback, I mean, his absence is going to hurt them because I think second to, I guess, a running game, a solid tight end's a pretty good friend to an inexperienced quarterback.
No, I agree with you. That's a safety valve.
Pretty much, yeah. And I know that I like Fedorowicz. I mean, he's tough. He's got sure hands. And let me think. Really, I guess in that offense, I would have to say that he would kind of sort of be a number 2 option almost in the passing game,
especially with Will Fuller out.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, normally I would definitely say Fuller because he's so explosive, but with him out, you kind of look to Fedorowicz after Hopkins, but yeah, that's going to hurt.
Right. Danny Woodhead, it says here, has a hamstring issue and is going to be out 4 to 6 weeks.
Yeah, and refresh my memory, he's with who now?
Baltimore.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think he played a lot in that game necessarily. I didn't see. I was watching the highlights of that game. I didn't see him get a lot of action.
Yeah, maybe it was already like a lingering thing, and then the little action he did, like, made it go boom, you know?
Yeah, I don't know. He just seems to have been like bing bang ever since he left New England. I don't know.
He had the one good year in San Diego, and then that was it.
Right. Yeah, that's a shame now. I mean, he's a crusty little player. I mean, he works in the passing game, and I guess he kind of fits their mold somewhat. But as you know, I do like Baltimore as sort of a dark horse. But and you said he's going to be out how long?
4 to 6 weeks.
Yeah, I mean they'll live, but you're right. That's a fairly big name to be out for a while.
And then the obvious one is David Johnson is going to have surgery on his wrist sometime this week and miss anywhere from 2 to 3 months.
That's devastating. I mean, not only to fantasy owners, but to that team. And I was watching the highlights of the game, and maybe they didn't show in the highlights, like particularly if there was a particular play where he was injured. He was taking a lot of heavy shots in that football game. They showed this one play where Carson Palmer threaded the needle, and he caught a pass down the seam, like at the 5-yard line. There were like 3 Lions right there, and he just got crunched.
Oh.
And he got up very, very slowly. And then the play where he actually lost the fumble, it looked like he kind of turned around and tried to grab the guy who recovered the fumble, and he kind of ended up laying on his stomach halfway out of bounds, and he got up very slowly after that. So I don't know where exactly he did that, but he took from what I saw, he took a physical pummeling in that game. But that's just devastating from probably, I don't know, the all around most productive young back in football. That's
last year,
I mean, gee whiz, Carson Palmer's already
bad enough. Yeah, if I remember correctly, last year he had either it might have been both 100 receiving yards and 100 rushing yards in every game, or it was combined. I don't remember which, but it was some crazy stat that he was the only guy that had it last year.
Yeah, that's that's he's a unique player because he's got the skittishness, of your scat back type of player, but he's also got a certain degree of physicality. And certainly very good pass catcher, very good to run after the catch. So, I mean, he's the kind of guy that, somebody like Carson Palmer, I mean, I hate to say it, but Carson Palmer kind of needs a guy that he can dump off to so that he doesn't make even more bad decisions. But that basically, I mean, with Fitzgerald kind of on the backside, as you often say, that's just... I would love to know what percentage of their offense he's responsible for. It's got to be a huge percentage. And that just, you tear that chunk out of there, and it just puts so much more pressure on their defense, and it's just going to force Palmer to do more. And, oh, God, that's really devastating.
Yeah, I got to say this, and we haven't discussed this, but, and I hate to say it like this, but it gives Carson Palmer and their fans an out.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Because I was not one of the people that the so-called experts were all over the Arizona Cardinals hype train. Carson, they desperately need a new quarterback.
Yeah, I think that the Palmer era is, I mean, if it ever was even such a thing, is pretty much over. I mean, I just think that when you reach that age range, and you're still, I was looking at the interceptions he threw yesterday, and I know people say, the one was tipped, and yeah, it was tipped, but he was throwing, it was 7 yards down the field to a back, and he threw it so poorly behind the guy. All the guy could do was reach for it. And it just kind of popped up in the air, and yeah, the defensive player that picked it off was in perfect position. But that's what happens when you throw it behind a guy that badly, And the other throw was it was a very simple. The one guy was kind of running an out, the other guy was just kind of running a little, straight up the seam. And I mean, Palmer just threw it to nowhere, and it's like, you're 40 years old. What the heck are you doing?
All right. Well,
so I don't see it getting any better. And he has a fine core of receivers, and then you've got Johnson. And you're still doing this nonsense. I mean, gee whiz.
No, I agree.
I did. What's he going to do? Peak at 40? The clocks has run out on this guy. Never been a postseason winner.
Nope.
So what exactly is the value here?
No,
what are you waiting to assemble the perfect defense and then going to pay him a boatload of money to be Trent Dilfer? I mean, gee whiz, And if you're going to do that, you could, anybody could be that thing.
No,
you know what I'm saying?
I agree with you.
So I really think, and yes, I agree with you. I don't see the Cardinals as, other than the fact that they're going to be dealing with the Rams twice and the Niners twice. That's nice for them. But as far as them like skating on 2 slabs of butter to the Super Bowl, I'm not so sure about that.
I agree with you there. All right, well, let's get into
that's
the
before
games.
The Johnson injury. Pardon me.
No, you're good. All right, so we kicked off the season with Kansas City, probably one of my 2 surprises of the week, pummeling the Patriots eventually 42-27.
Yeah, surprised by the outcome, and I guess by the manner in which it happened.
It was almost like they switched bodies. Like Alex Smith looked like Tom Brady, and Tom Brady looked like Alex Smith.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that I have to give the Chiefs credit for is that the resilience. I mean, they screwed up early, and they came back from that. And then they fell behind later on again, and then they came back from that. And I didn't like the way that they were – I didn't particularly like the way that they were chunking up their offensive yards because they were doing it mostly on big plays. And I've seen teams do that before to New England, and you're giving New England too much time to do too many different things, to tinker with too many different ideas. So I said, okay, well, you got this big play. That's all fine and well. But what really impressed me was, after that fumble, the defense didn't give up, and they, and I do respect Reed for, feeding Hunt and not benching him after that fumble.
Yeah,
that was a very heady decision.
Yeah, because most coaches would have just given up.
Right. Now, once Hightower went down, you could see how the defense was really affected because there's nobody to chase guys down the seams. And they were just attacking. And, you kept waiting for the infamous Bill Belichick adjustments to happen, and they just didn't seem to be happening. And I think, honestly, that they were completely caught off guard by the, the two-edged sword of Hunt's offensive abilities. I just, I don't know how they couldn't have possibly spent too much time in the film room watching his highlights from Toledo, for God's sake. I mean, I think they were just caught off guard. I feel bad for the Saints next weekend, boy, because Belichick's going to march in there awfully angry. But that did surprise me, and I kept thinking, all right, well, they're getting these big plays, but that they're also leaving New England a lot of time to kind of take control of the game, and never happened.
No, the one thing I'll say real quick, and then we'll move on, is the Chiefs might have won this game, but they lost the war because Eric Berry blew out his Achilles, so he's done for the season. That's a gigantic loss.
And he's definitely out for the year.
Yes. That's a big loss because he basically shut Gronk down in that game.
He's the emotional leader of the defense, too.
Yeah, that's a gigantic loss for them. All right.
Yeah, that is.
Next, we have the Steelers hanging on to beat their rivals, the Browns, 21-18.
Well, I mean, I guess I'll talk a little bit about Cleveland. I mean, first they come out their very first offensive series and do what we would traditionally expect the Cleveland Browns to do. They get the ball, they march backwards, and then they punt into a touchdown. You know, they lose yardage, and then they get their punt blocked, and the Steelers scored, and you're thinking, oh, my God, these poor Cleveland Browns, here we go again. But they actually really did play very hard. I watched about a 10-minute highlight reel, and when they were down 21-10, Ben had a chance to put them away from about the 35-yard line, and he threw for a touchdown, and one of the defenders made a really great play right around the goal line to pick it off, and Cleveland went back the other way, scored a touchdown. And Crowell, you know, they used him in the screen game a little bit, which was probably good for Kaiser. I mean, I saw Kaiser a little bit. You know, his mobility is helpful. But, you know, the Steelers' pass rush, they have that kind of pass rush that even mobile quarterbacks are not safe from. I don't know how they do it. I guess they have a really good scheme of boxing quarterbacks in. Because even if you're mobile, the Steelers always get you.
I was going to say, remember everyone was like doom and gloom when they switched coordinators, when Dick LeBeau left.
Yeah, I mean, what do you have, like a combined 6 decades in the league as a player and coach, and they were like, oh, they're going to have to scrap the whole thing and start over, and Shazier was just ferocious. You know, and how about J.J. Watt's brother? They have 2 sacks and an interception.
Yeah, he looks like he's the real deal.
And that interception, while it was a god-awful throw to who knows who and where, he really had to go up in the air to snag that. So, you know, good nose for the ball. And, you know, Ben making some throws that only Ben will even attempt. But my goodness, you know, Antonio Brown making these catches in triple coverage. And even though he didn't score, you know, 11 catches for like 180 yards. And Jesse James looks like the new Heath Miller, you know, the new inside the 10-yard line. Yeah, the new red zone guy, you know, that I guess fantasy guys are going to be drooling over. And we all knew he was like 6, you know, almost 7 feet tall. But now that we know he's got hands, I mean, yeah, I guess he's going to be the go-to guy. And they actually controlled Bell very well until the last drive when the Steelers had to run out the clock, which was kind of interesting, but that obviously didn't matter.
Yeah. All right, next we have, and this is my surprise game of the week, is Jacksonville pummeling Houston 29-7.
Yeah, in Houston. And I guess the only thing I can chalk this up to is just, you know, the stress and emotional drainage of the whole weather problem down there.
Right.
Yeah, that's the only thing I can really. I mean, you know, you want to think to yourself, oh, they're going to be fired up and they're going to do it for the city and for the people who are suffering. Maybe as the season goes on, but I think right now, I think that whole organization and the whole city is just shell-shocked. I think they're in recovery, and no matter how much you might want to do it for the city, you know, the human spirit can only get you so far. So I think they're a little, and I think that, you know, Calais Campbell, you know, look, I watched the first half of that game on the internet today, and nobody would have survived that onslaught. There were 3 different guys with a sack in the first half, and O'Brien, with his, Wheel of Fortune quarterback system, he decided that, old Doc Savage, the man of bronze, was not going to be the guy in the second half. But you know what? Even though Watson took him down the field and got him a touchdown in the second half, he still got sacked. He got strip sacked. He threw at least one interception that I can remember. And that pass rush was just it was horrific. It was brutal. I mean, no quarterback could have withstood that. So, if that pass rush continues to function on that level, I mean, Fowler was playing out of his mind. And if Bortles can actually go a number of games without turning the ball over, which I think was very noteworthy.
Or taking a sack.
Right. Maybe, and I saw some of the throws he made, and I mean, they were not, anything highlight reel worthy, but he was putting the ball where his guy would catch it and not another guy. So, I mean, I'm skeptical that he will ever do that for any length of time because he never has. But if he were to do that and that defensive line were to continue to play like that, well, he could, they could surprise some people.
Right. I'll bring this up real quick and then we'll move on.
Sure.
They basically played ball control where Fournette ran the ball, I think it was like 26 times or 25 times, something like that.
I know it was more, it was at least 25, and he looked very, very sharp doing it. So I think Bortles, if I remember correctly, only ended up throwing 21. And his completion percentage, as usual with him, was like a nudge over 50%. So no biggie, but the important thing is he didn't screw it up. He didn't give the other team a short field. And that defense just moidalized, Watson and Savage both. I mean, they were just horrific.
I'm curious to see real quick because Allen Robinson went down and he's out for the year as well. He blew out his ACL.
Right. And they brought Hearns in, who's not bad, to replace him. Now, Hearns isn't a bad player.
No, but I don't know if he's the guy.
Well, that's what they have. That's the next guy. That's the next guy in line.
Next man up, yeah.
Yeah, so there are worse options as far as, the next guy on the depth chart, I guess. He certainly isn't Robinson, but what the hell.
All right, next we have the Raiders defeating Tennessee 26-16.
Sorry, you broke up there for a minute.
I said Oakland wins by 10 on Sunday.
Yeah, I'm sorry, you broke up there for a minute. You there?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Go ahead. Let's try that. Can you shoot that at me one more time?
Sure. I said Oakland wins by 10 against Tennessee.
Yes, I'll try not to donate a whole hour to this. Finally, they put away a game in which they are leading in the second half.
That's always nice.
Yeah, I was just impressed with, Carr's ball distribution and with Marshawn Lynch. He really had some typical beast mode runs. They used him in the screen game. He had several runs of 10 plus. He converted a 4th and 1. He trucked a 305-pound defensive lineman. And I think there were 3 different receivers with five or more receptions. So, and I saw a lot of physicality with the receivers. It's almost like Lynch's attitude was kind of wearing off a little bit. I saw a lot of stiff arms and stuff like that. And the defense had a very nice little bend but don't break mentality. I mean, they did give up chunks of yards, but they held when it mattered, and I was pretty happy with that. But I thought it was important for the Raiders to show that they could go on the East Coast, on the road and win on the road in the 1 o'clock time zone.
No, I agree with you. And they basically did what they had to do against a team that a lot of people are considering as an up and comer.
Yeah, I mean, you and I had a conversation the other day, and we were trying to pick out, some maybe teams that might surprise or might, maybe snatch a wild card. And I had mentioned, we had talked about Tennessee, and I still think that they've got a couple pieces whereby maybe they could do that. So, yeah, it's a pretty decent road win to open up the year, and neither team turned the ball over, which I thought was interesting for an open day game. They played a pretty clean football game. I
was going to say usually opening day is pretty sloppy.
Yeah, and I think they gave up a combined 3 sacks between the two, so it was just kind of like two teams kind of firing up and down the field, and in the end, Oakland had a little bit more firepower. Well, it was an interesting game, though.
No, I agree. Next, we had the Eagles going into D.C. and beating the Redskins 30-17.
Some really exciting quarterback play in this game, as you know.
Yeah, this was a long game, like from start to finish, but you had so much exciting things in like a 4-hour game, I think, or 3.5-hour game.
Usually, when a game seems that long on the real clock, it's usually a crappy game.
I'm about to say it's usually bad.
For some reason, this game took forever to end, and I still didn't want it to end. I wish it was like, come on, play another quarter.
I will keep this short. I was happy with the win. The defense looked well. The one thing I hated, and it brought, and we talked about this when it happened, it was rage-inducing because it reminded me of so much of Andy Reid. Is just stupid fucking play calling. That backwards swing pass to Admiral Nelson has to go. Yeah, and some of the other. For those of you that didn't get that game, it was basically a behind the line pass that didn't get completed and then was eventually recovered by the Redskins.
Yeah, and as I promised you on Sunday, I just have to take a moment to curse the existence of Torrey Smith on that particular play. Because he literally stood there and watched the football on the ground like somebody watching a smoldering cigarette butt at a gas station, hoping it would go out before it blew the place up.
That's funny.
It was awful. And you got to be aware. You got to err on the side of the caution. You're not sure if it's a live ball, kick it out of bounds, jump on it, do something for God's sake. But it
just reeked of Andy Reid ignorance, or arrogance, excuse me.
Yeah, so a couple of the play calls, I was like, come on, Peterson, you got a nice rhythm going here. Don't muck it up with this,
Dreck.
50 things. Yeah, all kinds of backflips going on behind the line of scrimmage. The idea is to move forward.
Right. No, that's all I really want to say. And I thought it was a big road win in the division to start off your season.
Well, kudos to Wentz for extending plays and making great throws on the run. And kudos to Cousins, even though he didn't play 4 consistent quarters of football. Kudos to him for running and diving headfirst on at least 3 occasions that I remember to get first downs. That was some really fun old school football, our quarterback play that we watched, and I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I agree. Next, we have the Ravens beating up on the Bengals 20-0.
Well, I guess all those pins I stuck in that Andy Dalton voodoo doll paid off. Look, I watched, I'm not going to make too much or too little of this. I watched the highlight reel of this, and nobody would ever think that John Harbaugh's secondary was going to be this bad two years in a row. And, Andy Dalton, he did get some bad breaks in the game, but a couple of those throws were just atrocious.
Well, let's just face it, Andy Dalton is not a starting NFL caliber quarterback.
He's not. Let me put it this way: he could probably start somewhere. I mean, I'm sure the Jets would probably sit McCown right now in favor of Andy Dalton. I mean, and rightfully so. Cleveland would probably sit Kaiser and say, "Here, Kaiser, watch this guy and learn what you probably shouldn't do, and then we'll start you next year." I mean, there are places he could go, and at least, for a while, he would be a better option than what they have. I'm not saying he's a completely talentless hack, but here is the fact of the matter as far as I'm concerned. He is not the caliber player that he was drafted to be.
No, yeah, he was supposed to be a franchise quarterback.
Exactly. And a quarterback that was going to take them to the certain level along with this ferocious defense that they had, this alleged defensive genius over here that's been here for 20 years, despite the fact that he never wins in the playoffs. He's assembled this defense, and they had a couple good running backs, and they even put together a good offensive line for him, which now a lot of these guys are starting to migrate. You know what I mean? And I think what you're looking at is you're getting to a point now where these guys are going to start to migrate, and you're going to have nothing left but Andy Dalton and A.J. Green.
Yeah.
But what the Ravens did was they ran the ball with West, and Flacco spread the ball around a little bit, and and Dalton just gave them. He admitted after the game, I'll admit, he manned up. He said, "I gave us no chance to win," and he's absolutely right.
No, that's absolutely true. All right, next we have the Falcons holding on in Chicago, 23-17.
I really thought that I thought this was going to go the other way. I think you did too, for a minute.
I gotta say though, the Bears, to their credit, they play hard because they are really devoid of talent.
Yeah, I guess they probably have a bottom 5 roster talent-wise.
Yeah.
Or close to it.
I would say that.
Now, here's the thing. I have to bring this guy up because he kind of stole the show Sunday. Okay. Have you seen anything of this other running back, not Howard, but this kid Cohen?
Yes, I've heard about him.
I'm telling you, he's dynamite on the dance floor.
Dynamite.
He is explosive. They split him out. They handed him the ball, and I was wondering, geez, wow, Howard only ended up with like 52 yards. Atlanta really controlled him. It wasn't so much as that as it was that Cohen actually, averaged like 7 yards a carry.
Right, I think this kid, now with Kevin White going down, another body that's out for the year, broken collarbone, they might put him maybe in the slot or in a lot of like wheel routes and, get him out in space.
Somebody there should just pull out a blackboard and just start getting really creative, because this Cohen kid, he's tough, he's fast, he can catch the ball. I mean, he's not just a little fast guy that doesn't have a football attitude. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's really strong. And I'll tell you something else. The Bears, I watched the final drive. They had 1st and goal with plenty of time, and they had 2 dropped passes right at the end. One was in the end zone, and one was right on the goal line. I'm sorry, you still there?
Yeah, I just sighed. I was like, that's the Bears for you.
Yeah, Glennon put it right on the money. and they dropped it. Bellamy dropped one, and I don't know who the other kid was, but I was like, oh my God, these poor Bears fans.
Yeah.
Because they got that kickoff. Did you see the guy fumbled the kickoff?
Yeah.
You know, and you think, oh, okay, we got it back. Oh, well, we're destined for a 24-23 win, you know. And Bear fans must have been all excited. They marched down the field, and geez, right in, especially Bellamy. I mean, he was right in the back of the end zone, right in his hands. That's what happens when you're not used to winning. You don't know how.
Yeah, it's crazy. All right, next we have the Bills beating the Jets in the Clunker Bowl, 21-12.
Oh God! Yeah, the battle for New York mediocrity. You know, the thing that confused me about it, and it actually worked a couple times. I just don't know why the hell they did it. The Bills got, you know, inside the 5, you know, first and goal from inside the 5, and they threw the damn ball.
Weird.
And I'm like, why? Why are you inviting disaster? Has New York not been through enough? You know? I mean, Tolbert scored a touchdown. And McCoy ran the ball well. But they actually scored, I think it was 2 touchdowns off play action, like inside the 5-yard line. Now, Tyrod Taylor, of course, he has to throw one bad interception every single game. This was no exception. He threw a real clunker, but he would have thrown 2. But this kid, what the heck is his name? I think it's a receiver by the name of Anderson, Robbie Anderson, and this Bills safety come up, and he was about to make a beautiful leaping in the air interception, and this kid Anderson literally ripped it out of his arms, and when they came down on the ground, Anderson had it, and that was a really, you know how I hate it when receivers kind of stand there and watch the guy intercept it.
Yeah.
You know, that's one of my pet peeves. But he literally wrestled it out of his hands, and by the time they got on the ground, he had it, and the referee gave it to the Jets. But I thought that was really strange, and McCown really didn't do bad, but they shot themselves in the foot when they went for that 2-point conversion, big guy. And then when Buffalo scored again, they were down 9. Now they were behind the 8 ball.
No, I agree with you. All right.
But both teams, by the way, both teams had to blitz to get to the quarterback, which
is
does
never
not
a good
bode
thing.
well. Not when you have to play the Patriots twice.
No. All right.
Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Next, we have the Lions coming from behind and winning against Arizona 35-23.
I guess one of the reasons we exist is to save people from their own overexcitement. Like the people that right now are saying, okay, the Lions are going to play the Jaguars in the Super Bowl. You know, we're here. We're the last line of defense, you know. But having said that, this was a really good game for the Lions. We know that they can come back because last year they broke that record for comebacks, you know. But I think the really cool thing was that in his first pass after signing a $135 million contract, his first pass gets taken back for a touchdown. Stafford doesn't blink, you know, and this Lions defense that couldn't get a turnover to save their souls last year, they generated several turnovers. Granted, against Carson Palmer, but they look like more of a ball hawking defense, which is going to be very useful for them.
Especially in their division with the Bears and Sammy Sleeves, a.k.a. Sam Bradford.
Yeah, and the other thing I noticed is that Matthew Stafford is becoming a lot more of like a Joe Cool kind of guy in the pocket. Like he did run for a couple first downs, but what he's learning to do more is kind of like slide and slip and slither and take a few side steps and kind of jog out. But he's got his eyes downfield.
Yeah, he's
really.
I was going to say he's really gotten comfortable and much, much better as he's gotten older.
And yeah, after his career year last year, I mean, he's really settling into the role of being a guy that can use his strength, use his size, and use his vision and his feet to just kind of create a little bit of space, and instead of taking off running, because he does have very good athletic ability. But yesterday, 2 of the touchdowns that occurred were pretty much created by the fact that he was able to slither out of the initial pass rush. Instead of just taking off and maybe scrambling for 6 yards, he just kind of yanked out and yanked his jersey out of there and spun and sidestepped and then just threw the ball, and reset and threw it. That's going to make, and he did, and he threw to, he was throwing to 5, 6 different guys. That's the other beauty. It's Golden Tate had a big day, but it wasn't all Golden Tate. You really don't know. I think that's why he's gotten better since Calvin Johnson left. You really don't know who he's going to go to now, or who he's looking for. Like when they line up, you have no idea who he's looking at as his number one.
No, I agree. All right, next we have the Rams obliterating the Colts 46-9.
This is the one game that we promised each other pre-show that we wouldn't talk about too much because it will make people cry.
Well, and there's not really a lot to say. It's just I don't know if the Rams are necessarily that good or if the Colts are necessarily that bad.
Yeah, I mean, I felt bad for the Colts because they've got a smattering of pretty talented players, but nobody to really, throw it to them right now. Nobody to protect the quarterback. Nobody, the run blocking's not very good. I mean, a couple times Tolzien got the ball into the hands of his backs and his tight end Doyle, and they made some nice plays, but obviously the story of this game, I guess, is that the Rams pass rush just destroyed him, and that he made some horrific throws in the process. That kid Goff, for what it's worth, he actually looked pretty confident standing in there. For the first time ever, as far as I'm concerned. You could say that's meaningless because it was the Colts and it was a 5-touchdown victory, but I can't say it's meaningless because I've never seen him look confident at all, ever.
Right.
What do you think?
The other thing I'll mention really quick is, and we had talked about this off air, it seems like Andrew Luck eventually is destined to go somewhere else.
Yeah, I think that rope is getting really, really short.
Yeah, like that. They are really hurting, I think, for talent. I would say more. I was going to say more so on the defensive side, but really overall,
something's not right with him. I mean, either there's something with his medical that we don't know, or he's not taking his rehab seriously, or there's some kind of a private issue between him and the organization. I feel like there's some kind of unknown quantity happening between him and another party in the organization. I just don't know who, what, why, but I feel like I don't know the whole story. I don't know.
All right. Next, we have the Packers beating Seattle at home, 17-9.
A lot of people might disagree, but I thought this was a really good game.
It was like Trent's warfare, for a lot of this game, like old school football.
I can imagine a lot of people being disappointed because it may not have been the game many people expected from these two teams. There were not a lot of big plays down the field in the passing game.
No, I agree.
But both defenses looked rather sharp, and both pass rushes looked impressive, and both defenses looked very physical and very chippy.
See,
you know,
my thing is, I don't know if I'm buying the Packers defense just yet.
Well, I don't think you can buy any team's defense for the year just yet, but
they showed up.
In terms of showing up for their home opener against a team they hate and that they have a history with in the postseason, and a lot of controversy with the touchdown that didn't really happen with the replacement refs and the comeback a couple years ago. I mean, they showed up and they kind of did a Seattle to Seattle. I mean, they kind of suffocated them and bullied them and beat up on them a little bit.
No, I'd agree with that. All right.
I guess I'm sorry. I guess real quick, we just have to mention the defensive touchdown by Seattle that got negated by that ridiculous pair of calls.
Yeah.
I mean, the phantom punch and then the ejection.
I will say this real quick, and then we'll move on to the next game.
Sure.
By and large, from the stuff I've seen this week, in the first week, the refs were probably the worst I've ever seen them in officiating and making calls this week. It was fucking abysmal.
They went off into some weird territory, that's for sure.
There was we were watching the Eagles game, and there was the one I've never seen it. When we both said this, where they made a call, it was like a neutral zone infraction or something on the defense. I don't remember exactly what it was. And they announced it, and then one of the other refs comes and taps the guy that made the call on the shoulder. They have a conversation for a few minutes, and he's like, "Oh no, I meant false start." And they still let the play happen, which a false start is a dead ball foul.
Yeah, there was a lot of. I mean,
it was the most weird, mind scratching, head scratching thing I've seen.
Surreal.
Yeah. All right. Next, we have Carolina beating up on San Francisco 23-3.
Well, I just tried to in the highlight film. I just tried to look out for how these transplants to the Niners did. All these guys that got big money to go over there. All I can really say is that Garcon did okay. Carlos Hyde, who obviously was already there, he ran really hard. And they had an opportunity, particularly early in the game. They were moving the ball really well, and I think the score was 0-0 halfway into the second quarter. Then Carolina kind of woke up and said, oh, wait, we're the Panthers and they're the 49ers. Okay, we got it. Then they just kind of started to create the turnovers, go down the field on them to Benjamin and to Shepard and the Funches.
Because Newton didn't really have, superb numbers. They were very pedestrian.
He seems to have a lot of games like that where his numbers will be mediocre, and then he's almost, sometimes it feels like he's too damn talented for his own good. But the team as a whole seemed to kind of sleepwalk through the first quarter and a half, and then Kuechly got a beautiful almost a spinning 180 interception, and they started to get good pressure on the quarterback, and then you could just see who the better team was. But I have to give San Francisco credit. They played really hard. They worked really hard on that one scoring drive. They didn't want to get shut out to get in the field goal range, but they're just not at that level at all yet.
Right. All right. Next, we have the Sunday night game, which was Dallas beating up on the Giants 19-3.
I'm not really sure what we can say about Dallas that we didn't already know from this particular game. I think what we can say about the Giants is that as of week one, their offense is in disarray, and they better get it fixed They better get it fixed in a hurry, or they're going to be looking down at like an 0-4. Because
their offense is bad.
They're one of. There's another team that we haven't gotten to yet, but they're one of two teams whose offense just looked like the wheels just completely fell off. And it's a shame because their defense was working so hard to keep them in it. So hard.
Yeah, and they just basically ran out of gas.
Yeah, I mean, Elliott did okay. I thought that Prescott was audibling a lot, which was impressive.
He didn't hurt him.
The Giants' front four was very strong. I mean, they were overpowering at times against what they say is the best O-line in the league. So that was really interesting. But that offense, phew.
Yeah.
I mean, where do you start? Manning looks bad. I know Odell wasn't there, but where the heck was Marshall? He was non-existent. They don't have any good running backs. I think the whole offensive line sucks. I mean, I know
I agree with you. Their offense in general is just a mess.
Yeah, I think the whole offense is just junk.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Bad. Very, very bad. So I can't say much about Dallas except that one kid on the defensive line, DeMarcus Lawrence. He kind of adds some energy to that defensive line that was a little bit meh last year. But I don't know what to say about Dallas because against an offense that just literally could not string back-to-back first downs, I have no idea how to even gauge them at this point.
You can't really judge a team by playing an offense that was that putrid.
I agree. I mean, it's very hard to do. All you can really say is, okay, they did their job. They executed well. Everybody looked sound. I mean, they looked like they knew what they were doing. They didn't look, out of sync offensively or anything like that. No big blown coverages. But the Giants were so horrible on offense. I have no idea what to even say about the Cowboys other than that, fundamental stuff.
Yeah. All right. Next, we have the Vikings winning on Monday night, 29-19 against New Orleans.
This is the other offense that was perhaps even more shockingly out of sync because of Drew Brees. You always kind of expect perfection. Or at least that he's going to be on point.
Yeah.
And I know people will say, "Oh, they lost Cooks, and this group of receivers isn't as good, and Snead is suspended, and blah blah blah." But I even kind of felt like Brees was not at the very least he was not confident in what he was calling and running.
Yeah, I got you.
The route combinations didn't make sense. It really looked like guys were running to the same spot and overlapping, and it was just guys would kind of like stop and then start to go again, like, oops, I think I should be over here. It was just weird. Peterson doesn't really look like he has much of a role with this team, which they made a big deal about him having words with Peyton. I don't know how big of a deal that is, but I do think that over time, Peterson's going to get fed up with what I think is going to turn out to be a smaller role than what he wants. What do you think?
I agree with that. I think it's going to lead to a divorce, I think, at some point.
And they got this young scat back, this number 41. I can't remember his name, but he's one of these guys you can put all over the field and have him run all kinds of routes and end arounds and catches the ball really, really well. And Sean Payton is going to have a lot of fun with him. And then you've already got Ingram. And with Peterson, it's just what the heck do the Saints do with him?
His name is Alvin Kamara.
Yes, and he's going to be a very exciting player, and he's a Sean Payton kind of player. Sean Payton's going to be like Dr. Frankenstein with this guy.
Yeah, I hear you.
They had a first and goal. They threw 3 times with Peterson. They had Peterson fourth down, and they tried to do a play action. Like a waggle pass to Peterson. I was like, what in the world?
Yeah, that's just weird.
Yeah.
All right, and the last game of the week, we have Denver hanging on to beat the LA Chargers 24-21.
Yes, no Lance Allworth. He was a healthy scratch. But my takeaway from this game is that Denver's defense looks like they can carry Simeon for a while. How far is a big question mark right now.
Yeah.
And they were making a tremendous creative effort to try and talk up the Chargers, and I just don't really see it. I see talent and I see speed on the offensive side of the ball, and I don't think Gordon's going to be the bust that some of us initially thought he was. But I think in the trenches, I still have my doubts about the Chargers on both sides.
This. I thought their pass rush is really, really good.
Yes, it's much improved. That's something that they were missing for quite some time before Bosa and what the heck's that other guy's name? I can never remember it. But they've got a linebacker that uses Ingram. A pass rusher sometimes. Is it Ingram?
Yeah, the guy with the braids, right?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. They were destroying Denver's offensive line.
Yeah, and that's actually something that kind of makes me lick my chops as a Raiders fan. Is both their offensive lines look disconcerting.
Yeah, and then I gotta give the Chargers credit because it was like almost a game of like two games. Where one you thought they had like no chance, and then they like woke up and almost basically tied the game on the last snap of the game.
Yeah, I just couldn't believe how Denver fell apart at the seams at home like that. It's so rare for them to have like I think it was 24-7 with 12:20 to go, and they literally just like
pissed
it looked like they were. Yeah, they were attempting to turn the ball over on every snap, and it was like, what's happening? Like, and I have to give the Chargers credit. They got the ball and they attacked. They knew exactly what to do, and they looked like Denver was a little bit, deer in the headlights. And they attacked and they scored. That was impressive. They really chomped at the bit and went after it. I felt bad for the rookie kicker. The way they iced him. I had a feeling in my gut he was going to miss the second one.
Yeah. The one time the icing the kicker works.
Yeah, it's still annoying as hell. I hate that rule, but yeah, it did work.
No, I agree with you. All right, I'm going to go down the list of games for Week 2 and get your thoughts on, just, make a prediction on each game. Me and you can do it and see how we make out each week.
You got it.
All right, first off, Thursday night, we have the Texans and the Bengals.
Now, will you be able to give me the home team in each of these? Because I haven't really looked over these very carefully. Do you have that, or?
Yeah, give me a minute. I can do it.
I really haven't reviewed it. I just kind of looked at the first 4 weeks of the schedule, but
let me see if there's a way. Yeah, okay. It's Houston at Cincinnati.
This is good. I'm going to go with Cincinnati.
I gotta agree just because of Watson being a rookie and you'll have like those growing pains and from what I understand, another one of their offensive linemen got hurt, so he might not play. So that's a disaster on their offensive line right now.
Cincinnati still has a defense too.
That too.
I
think Houston does, but their offense is doing them no favors.
It's a tougher road to hoe because no quarterback. I mean, I hate Dalton, but Dalton to Green is probably more prolific than anything Houston's got right now. Right. And Bernard. So, yeah.
All right, next we have Buffalo going to Carolina.
This could be a better game than people might think, but I don't like the way I saw Buffalo throwing in so many run situations. I think they'll end up getting eaten up by that. So I'm going to have Carolina pulling away when all is said and done.
I agree. I'll go with Carolina. Next, we have the Bears at Tampa.
I'm going to go with Tampa. I mean, I think they're going to be a little angry about the
16 weeks in a row.
Yeah, I think they're a little angry. I think, well, they're rested, they're prepared, they're at home. The Bears kind of got their hearts broken, whites out, for the season again. Yeah, I think Tampa should handle them.
All right, next we have Minnesota traveling to Pittsburgh.
Well, I'll tell you, after last night, I got some issues with this. I'll tell you, Bradford really made some nice throws under duress, but I think this is a little bit too much for him. I think this is going to be a heck of a defensive war, though, and these quarterbacks are going to be making some beautiful throws. I'm just going to give it to Pittsburgh by a field goal.
I would say that because I don't necessarily trust Bradford. I mean, yeah, he looked good, but it was against the Saints, who are notorious for having terrible defense.
That is true.
Speaking of that, we have New England traveling to New Orleans this coming week.
The Patriots?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's New England.
I have no doubt in my mind they're angry, and they've had 10 days to sit on it. They're probably going to put a good whooping on them.
Would not want to be the next team to play Bill Belichick. No way.
Yeah. All right. Next, we have Arizona at the Colts.
Oh, the poor Colts. I got to go with Arizona. The Colts just have nothing.
Yeah, it's kind of like by subtraction. Like Palmer's bad, but they're even worse at quarterback, the Colts.
He could throw 3 picks and they could still win.
All right. Yeah, I agree. Next, we have the Browns at the Ravens.
Well, the North always plays the North well, but I'm going to give the edge to the better pass rush and a more seasoned quarterback, Ravens.
Yeah, I'll go along with that too, just because I don't think the Browns are there just yet.
Nope.
All right, next we have Tennessee going to Jacksonville.
Well, you know how my theory of the karma of the NFL has this evening out effect?
Yeah.
This is one of those games. I think Tennessee goes to Jacksonville and evens up their record. I don't think Bortles has another mistake-free game. I think Mariota is mobile enough to avoid the rush enough to make some plays, and I think both teams come out of this with a 1-1 record.
Yeah, I could see that because Tennessee's got a pretty good defense. I think they'll try and figure it out. Like, because we had talked about it before, Houston was kind of shell-shocked.
Yes.
All right, next we have the Eagles traveling to Kansas City.
I'm going to give this is going to be a very close game, but I'm going to give Kansas City the edge. Maybe solely on home field advantage. Maybe there's not much else that's not pretty damn even, except because Kansas City's maybe has a better pass rush, but Wentz's mobility and strength throwing on the run. But then Kansas City has all this speed on the offensive side. I'm just going to give Kansas City maybe winning by one big play.
Not because I'm a homer, I will take the Eagles, and the reason being, if you watch Andy Reid, whether you're a Kansas City or an Eagles fan, you usually know that when he has a big win, he's usually followed by a letdown game.
Oh, that's an interesting point, and it's the student versus the teacher. So that familiarity, that's interesting.
Plus, Eric Berry getting hurt really hurts them.
That does. That does. That Ertz is going to be. He's going to have a huge game, win or lose.
Yeah. All right. Next, we have the Jets traveling to the Raiders.
48-17 Raiders.
Yeah, I'll agree with you. Oakland in a romp. All right. Next, we have Miami traveling to the Chargers.
Ooh. We haven't seen the Miami unfoil this Cutler team with Landry and Parker and those guys yet, but I have seen the Chargers and I kind of like what I see. So I'm and Miami's got to go across the country, so I'll go with San Diego.
That I agree, and I think the Chargers defense will make Cutler do turn the ball over and do it, because he always seems to do one stupid thing every game.
It doesn't take much. All you got to do is ask him nicely.
Yeah, isn't that the truth? Next, we have Dallas traveling to Denver.
I think that Dallas is going to win this football game.
Interesting.
I'm not too impressed with Denver, and I know this will be a big game for Prescott. But I'll tell you something. I got a problem with Simeon, and he's got trouble working the ball down the field. And I think as long as he's not doing that effectively, I think that weakness is going to make Dallas's defense better because they can shrink it down a little bit.
Yeah.
And I do think Dallas could run the ball, because you got to remember, Denver's defense is great, but it's great against the pass and weak against the run.
That's true.
And I think Dallas is going to go down there and come out with a W.
I will go with Denver because I think they can at least keep that Dallas defense on the field with C.J. Anderson running the ball and use play action, maybe run some slants with Thomas and Sanders and the I forget his name, the white kid that had a really big game for Denver last night. I think he had like 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, and of course, I draw a complete blank, but I know exactly who you're talking about.
Nah, that's okay. But I'm going to go with Denver.
Okay.
All right, next we have the Redskins traveling to the Rams.
I think the Redskins are going to recover and win this game. I obviously, you like what you saw from Goff against a hapless Colts team, and it's good to see him get his feet under him a little bit. But I think the Redskins, I'm not sure what's the update on Trent Williams, if he was badly, injured or not. I know he left the game for a while Sunday. I assume he's in good shape. But I think that that they have enough. I think they have enough playmakers, and I think they got a pretty good running game. I think Cousins will make some turnovers in this game because of the Rams' pass rush, but I think in the end he'll make enough plays for the Skins to get a much-needed road win against a Rams team that's not quite at the point where they're used to stringing wins together yet.
No, I completely agree. I'll go along with you with the Redskins. Sunday night, we have the Packers traveling to Atlanta.
Boy, I don't know what to make of this one. I'm going to go ahead and follow through on your theory that you're not sure about Green Bay's defense yet. And I'll tell you, this Hooper kid, he's an animal. He stiff arms everybody to death now.
I loved it.
But with that additional weapon, he's like 6'5", 230 pounds, tight end that runs like a wide receiver.
Yeah.
That and a good pass rush. I think this past Sunday might have been a bit of an aberration for Green Bay. I'm gonna go with Atlanta at home over Green Bay.
I agree. They pummeled the Packers in the NFC title game, so it's very possible they do it again.
That's a good point too. Could be more of the same there.
Right, because I don't really think they've made huge additions to change that. And
Yep.
next Monday night, we have Detroit traveling to the Giants.
This might sound, I almost feel worried that I'm picking so many road teams, but I got to tell you something. Until I see Eli Manning, I guess Beckham, he's going to play Sunday night, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Until I see the Giants offense hum a little bit better, I don't even know that Beckham coming back is enough by himself to fix that. And I saw a Detroit team Sunday that was resilient. I saw a Detroit team that was able to create turnovers, which is a marriage made in heaven with Eli Manning. And I saw a Detroit offense that was very explosive and very, very sort of multifaceted, could spread the ball around. So, you know what? I kind of like Detroit until I see the Giants, not stink completely on offense.
No, I completely agree with you. Until Eli and company show me that they can actually show up and stay on the field, I'm taking the Lions.
Uh-huh.
All right, everyone. We're going to get out of here for tonight. So don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share, give it a thumbs up, all that good stuff. And we'll see you back next Tuesday. Have a good night, everybody.